There we go. Hi, everyone. It is Jaime Jo right here at Madlit Musings, and today I have returning guests, the indomitable duo of romantic historical mayhem. How is that for an introduction for Kimberley Woodhouse and Tracie Peterson? Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. That was wonderful.
I love it.
I think I've had too much coffee or something today.
Is there too much coffee?
No, there's not. There's not. And let's not start that conversation because I will wax eloquent on that for a very long time. Oh man, it's such a fun time to have both of you on, but then to have both of you on together is even better. And so I'm excited for this chit chat today.
I'm just kind of worried because it seems like when the three of us get together, there's
There is
Trouble.
trouble.
and excitement and trouble. And
Yeah, there is.
A lot of trouble.
But that's what makes the podcast interesting. Otherwise, people are just like, oh, it's been 30 seconds. I'm bored. Click.
ah,
But with us, they don't know what's coming. So it could be the most boring podcast, but they're still going to listen because they're like, what's going to come out of
What's gonna
Kim's
happen?
mouth?
that's right.
Yes.
Oh man, you guys have a new book. You have a book called With Each Tomorrow. It's book 2 in the Jewels of Kalispell series. Who wants to give us the rundown of what it's about?
Oh, Kim will.
Oh, I
I
will.
figured that was the answer. Go, Kim.
Kim will.
Woot, woot.
Kim
Okay.
will.
We've been joking though, as we've been doing podcasts and interviews and everything. It's funny because they ask us questions and the readers probably may not understand, but Jamie, you understand.
Yeah.
Other authors. We've written like 5 or 6 books since
Right.
this one. So trying to engage ourselves and the fact that we just wrote book 3. So that one's really, really fresh
Oh.
in our
I
mind.
could just read the back cover if that's easier.
Oh, sure. Read the back cover.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to do it in my most dramatic flair.
It'll be more eloquent than me anyway.
All right, here we go. This is my movie voice now. As the formation of Glacier National Park. Okay, I won't do that. All right, as
It was funny though. I liked it.
my kids are always like, read the backs of books in different accents. So then I'll switch it up and I'll be like, as the formation of Glacier National Park takes place, Eleanor Briggs, and I just switch them and then like, do Russian. I'm like, okay, stop. All right. As the formation of Glacier National Park takes Eleanor Briggs and her conservationist father on a journey west to advocate for public lands, her heart carries the weight of a painful past. Since the death of her mother, she has spent her life traveling the country with her father and helping him with his work, but now he's considering settling down and writing a book, and she's not sure what that means for her future. Carter Brunswick, actually, it's probably pronounced Brunswick, but I just put the German flair there, faces trials of his own when the Great Northern Railway's departure threatens his family's livelihood and the entire town of Kalispell. In the visiting conservationist's daughter, Ellie, he finds a spirited woman who challenges his convictions in ways he never anticipated, and his own dreams for the future begin to change. When tensions over the railroad's departure boil over, Ellie and Carter are drawn together on a daring journey that tests the depths of their feelings and their faith in God.
Ellie's
Ooh.
serious and Carter is humorous.
Yes.
Oh, is that their personalities? So we have a serious versus humorous pairing?
Well, and Carter's also an instigator. He
Ooh, I like him
well,
already.
at least with her,
And a
he's
little
an instigator.
snarky. Yeah.
A little snarky. Eleanor is very much an intellectual. That's kind of her whole background, and the fact that she comes into their first meeting is pretty hilarious because she comes into the train station demanding attention because she needs to be taken care of right away because
Oh,
the other people are just chit chatting. She's from the East. And so, back in Kalispell, this small town, everybody knows each other, right? So she doesn't understand this. And he has just come from quite an incident himself. Let's just say he might be a little
okay.
bloodied and bruised. So
Oh,
he's not
minor
making
details.
the best impression. And he's a little bit irked that this young uppity snippety thing is coming in, demanding attention and not being very mannerly. So
He's not being very mannerly, or she's not being.
He's not. In fact, he wants to know where she's from because
right.
he
Ooh.
wants to know where people come from that aren't mannerly like she is.
So she's from New York City. No, I'm just kidding.
She is from the Northeast.
The
Yes.
Northeast. why do people in the Northeast have a reputation or a stereotype? Is that
You
just
know, the
busy
people that
life?
I've known who live in the Northeast are proud of it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I
I know.
used to have a friend who said, I have a lack attack and I'm proud of it. So I
I
don't
wonder.
know.
That would be interesting to look into and find out where that came from.
Yeah, we
know?
lived there, the past few years until we moved
Right.
back to Colorado. And it was very interesting, how
Sure.
people spoke to one another, how they did things. Like, for instance, I mean, I know we're off track, but this is hilarious to me. The Philadelphia Eagles fans, they have this reputation of just being so horrid and awful and mean and rude, and man, they are feisty and love it, and love that reputation. And I'm thinking, you want people to think that you're ugly to others?
There's an element of pride in being direct and forceful and
Yes.
No filter.
vocal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, for those of you listening who are from the East, the Northeast,
We
we
love
still
you.
love you.
We love you.
We do. We do.
And we're going to come at you with all the Midwestern, Southern, Western love that we can muster. And you have to just deal with it. So there,
Bless
how's
your
that?
heart.
Bless your heart. Now, when
Bless
I
your
say
heart.
that, it is not an insult.
Uh-huh.
I'm just saying.
That can be taken two ways too. Bless your heart, can't it?
That's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All these people who
Okay.
think that it's an insult,
Mm-hmm.
some of us just go, "Oh, bless your heart." It's not an insult.
No.
At least
No.
what I just did.
Not
Yeah.
when Kim does it. No.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Okay, so we've got some bless your hearts between Ellie and Carter, and I'm guessing they're not quite
Yes.
as sweet and sensitive as Kim's was just now.
They butt heads at every level. I mean, she's for public lands. He's a long time farmer from the area, so he's for
Mm.
private lands.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big issue in Montana. It
Mhm.
still is a big issue in
Mhm.
Montana.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole national parks thing going on and the beauty of the area. And, Ellie isn't finding it to be, the capital of intellectualism that she has been a part of all her life. But at the same time, she's really captivated, by the people, by,
Mhm.
their attitudes and what's important to them. And she's not so, you know, hard that she can't learn, but
Yeah.
it is a journey for her,
Yeah.
especially when she comes up against Carter's strong faith in God and then her past, which had elements of God in it, but things happened.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So she's got elements in her past, and obviously Carter has some too. Now are Eleanor's, because you mentioned her mother has passed,
Mhm.
is that the crux of her trouble from the past, or am I asking for
Yes.
spoilers that I shouldn't ask about?
No, that is the crux. And the reader
Okay.
finds that out at the very beginning, because that's the
Okay.
very beginning of the book, is her as a teenager having to watch her mother die.
Mm.
So you kind of understand her motivation and where she's coming from. And what I think is really important to understand about Ellie is she's an intellectual, and yet she's always grabbed onto the truth of others. So when she was being raised, just completely adored, loved her parents and her mother, and was so close to her mother. And her mother was a very strong believer and loved the
Okay.
Lord, and even was encouraging her on her deathbed,
Mhm.
to make sure that you grab onto God. But Ellie had never made it her own. That had always been her mother's. So then
Mhm.
she blamed God, when her mother died.
Right. Right.
So the same thing happens with her and her father. I think her father's way of dealing with his grief is to dive even more into the work that he does. And so he's spending all this time with conservationists, and they're going to lectures, and she's taking notes at all the meetings all the time. So she's taking in all this information, not that it's bad information, but
Mhm.
she's just grabbing onto what these people say rather than
Right.
what does she really believe. So
Mm.
even though she says she believes this, as she's traveling west, and they've traveled all over the country quite a bit, but this trip really has had an impact on her. And she starts to question, some of the things that she's always said and thought were the truth. But then she realizes, but there's got to be a different viewpoint,
Mm.
right? We have to have some sort of farms because we have to have food to
Mhm.
eat, right? So there's all kinds of conundrums, within that, and her learning who she really is and who God is through the whole thing, and for her to have a real relationship, a real faith of her
Mhm.
own,
Mhm.
and to also develop her own ideas and understand truth of her own is a huge revelation for her.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so important too to see in books, because I love reading fiction where you're traveling with the character through their journey of faith, that they haven't like arrived. And I think that's
Right.
fairly common in Christian fiction, but at the same time it's relatable and it makes the characters relatable.
Well, and in this story too, the faith of the whole town is rocked because
Mm.
they're going to move the railroad, and they've just seen this happen to another town close by when the railroad came into Kalispell, and that town died. So now they're worried the same thing's going to happen to them.
Mhm.
And there's still that, that element of, why is this happening to us, God?
Yeah.
What's going to happen next, and how are we going to survive once the railroad is moved to Whitefish? And, again, all of this was wrapped around, safety to the railroad. There was multiple accidents happening because of the steep grades and whatnot.
Mhm.
That wasn't a bad or vicious or negative kind of move where somebody said,
Right.
we hate Kalispell, so we're taking away your railroad. It was a good thing that was happening in the sense of safety. But
Mhm.
all these people are sitting there going, now what? Carter owns a flour mill. How's he going to ship his product? His
Right.
father is a wheat farmer who ships a lot of his grain to Minnesota, to the Pillsbury place, that kind of.
Right.
So what are all these people going to do? And
Mhm.
so all these, Carter and Ellie come together under all these dilemmas, and it just makes for fun in the storyline.
It does. So she was talking about the thriving town. This
Mhm.
is an actual art rendering of the town in 1897. So this is several years before our book
It's
takes
so
place.
tiny.
Yeah. Can you see it?
It's a little different than Kalispell is now.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is like
Yes.
the very
Spread out
downtown
all
area.
over.
For the record, regardless
Yeah.
of the railroad, Kalispell did not die.
Yes, it's
No,
still
it
there.
did
Yeah.
not.
So it's a beautiful town with so much really
Uh,
cool stuff, and
Mhm.
it had grown quite a bit from this era. It was a lot of fun when we were doing research, and Tracie and I stumbled upon the museum that had this map, and I said, "Oh, I need to buy one.
Yeah.
Where is it? Give me one map." But it's funny because I think I even posted on Instagram about it. It's pretty hilarious because the view, it's a bird's eye view of the city of Kalispell, Flathead County, Montana, 1897, looking southwest. So if you want to actually line this up, like with a map that we're used to looking at
Right.
today, to make sure that I got all the locations and everything right, I have to turn it upside down and
Upside
like
down.
crooked,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
to get it to line up.
Because readers like me are going to go through your book and make sure that you got the directions correct.
And I am. And so that's why all the little sticky notes, I don't know if you can see all those little
Yeah.
sticky notes over here, because I had to mark exactly where the locations of our historic buildings, that we used
Mhm.
for the series, because we used 3 special
Okay.
historic locations.
Yeah.
And because every time you look at a map, you're like, no, wait a second. Okay. Where was that in 1897? Okay. So it's like math, right?
Oh, he
Sometimes
lost me.
you
I'm
think
done.
too hard. You're like, wait a second, upside down, looking southwest,
Yeah.
because we're used
Right?
to north and
North
it's
and
kind of,
south. Right. Southwest is just a weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
somebody was at the top of a mountain, a hill overlooking, and that was the direction. And so that's how it was drawn.
That's something I would have done. I would have screwed up history by drawing maps in the wrong directions. I'm probably the person that would have created not even a circular Earth map. I would have created a triangular or something like that. And that would have been the Earth as I saw it. But okay. So we have the railway, which is in flux at this point.
Yes.
And then we also have the impending. Now, you wrote it during the time when Glacier National Park was becoming a park or had already been a park, or where are we at with that?
Just starting.
Okay.
This
They
is just
haven't-
the beginning of it.
They haven't created it yet.
Okay.
It'll be founded in 1910. So
Yes.
1910. Okay. So how did that work? So I'm really curious because I love Glacier. I love Glacier National Park.
wonderful.
It's a gorgeous park. So from a
So beautiful.
selfish side, I'm so glad it was turned into a national park.
Yes.
But how did it affect people who live there? Because I'm assuming that a lot of that land was public use or maybe even privately owned in certain
A lot of
portions.
it was owned by the Indians too.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. So did they just push everyone off and say no more? Or should I not ask those
When-
kind of
when
like a
the-
loaded question?
Yeah.
Those
When
are
the
the questions
president
not-
set it aside, yes, people were pushed off
Okay.
when it was set aside to be a national park. And so, we love tackling the issue of private lands versus public lands and
Right.
everything, because it's still something that we need to be thinking about, and yes, we're all very grateful that land
Right.
is Glacier National Park, because it's amazing.
Right.
It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite places to go. But thinking of, people we kicked out is pretty
Right.
gut-wrenching.
Mhm.
But they moved the hub to Whitefish,
Okay.
which Stumptown. It used to be called Stumptown.
Stumptown.
And it wasn't a very good, So during this era, it was called Stumptown. And they moved it to Whitefish. One, like Tracie said, they said, because of the steep grades and the maintenance on the railroad was so hard. But there were other things at play that are in the book. So you have to read the book to find out.
Oh, okay.
But there are other things at play in history
Right.
that affected all of this, and the decision of the railroad and the people who owned the railroad knew, and people like our conservationists, who are in the story. All of these different hands are in play. And yeah, they say they're trying to make a business decision, but then it's not like you can pick up the town. I mean, a well-established town like this.
Right.
It's not like you can pick up a town and move it
Right.
to Whitefish.
Not easily anyway.
Yeah.
Because in the Old West, they did move towns constantly when the railroad moved.
Right.
Right.
But a lot of these historic buildings that were so huge, they would have never been able to.
They couldn't have moved.
They would have become
never
ghost
been able to
town.
move them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the people didn't want to move away from where they were. And frankly, I wouldn't want to move to Whitefish from being so close to, Flathead Lake and
Right.
and all of that. And the time, if there wasn't really anything established in Whitefish. And so many things at play, and the people in the town are just so fun to research. If you look at the historic map, like we could always post a link somewhere of all the historic homes in Kalispell, you can still do a walking tour of the historic homes, and you can see what the homes originally were, what the buildings originally were, and all the cool things that used to be there, that the buildings are still there. There's still so much history.
Right.
That's there. And so they didn't want to give all of that up. And I wouldn't want to give it up either. It's a beautiful town. It's my favorite place in Montana. That was where we always loved to go, was Kalispell. We would always take our little weekend trips up there, my husband and I. So, but the depot is the focal historic building in this book. The first book was the Carnegie Library, which is now, it's still the Carnegie building. It's still the exact same building, but the Hockaday Museum of Art has taken it over. And the Chamber of Commerce was the depot, and now it's being renovated. It's going to be something different, which is very cool. And that was the one where I sent you the text all those years ago, Jamie, going down to the creepy basement.
Yes.
Depot.
I remember that text.
She was never the same when she came back up.
You can't be. Once you visited a creepy basement, your life is never the
Very,
same.
very, very, very creepy basement. There were several of the people was like, we won't go down there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of creepy basements, when I visited Philadelphia, we went to Edgar Allan Poe's house in Philadelphia, and I was in the creepy basement.
Did you hear like heartbeats thudding under the floorboards?
I heard all sorts of things because my imagination runs around.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. The shadow of a raven that ran across the floor.
My God.
The hiss of a cat.
You guys are so funny. So funny.
But the one
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, one of the questions we keep getting asked about this series
Okay.
is, will the same characters be in it? And there's just some glimpses of some of the characters from book one, but the exception is the judge and Marvella, who are just a hoot and a half. They are some of my very favorite characters, and they will appear in all 3 books.
Yes.
And they are Marvella considers herself the authority of the town, and she's the matchmaker, and she is the one that is going to make sure that if you aren't saved, you're going to get saved.
Oh, I love old ladies like that.
We just love Marvella. We get letters about Marvella, the judge. People adore this woman and their little dog. They have a little white dog named Sir Theophilus.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So I have to say, I've only had one interview that has asked why the dog was named Sir Theophilus. And I have a huge, huge stuffed penguin that my son got me one year for Christmas.
Okay.
Years ago.
Yeah.
And we were just joking around, talking about what are we going to name, the penguin.
Yeah.
And we named the penguin Sir Theophilus because we had just been
studying Luke.
Gotcha.
and so then when it came to name the dog, I told Tracie, it's like, oh, I have the greatest name. Sir Theophilus. For this little, can you see this little white floofy dog?
Oh, totally.
A little purse
100%.
dog? Yeah.
Yes. It's funny that you say that though, because I don't think people realize when we name our characters, especially some of the more unique names, where these names come from. Because I just finished edits on my book that's coming out in October, and Inspectors of the Glass House, there's a biographer. He's an elderly biographer, and he's writing the story of this cold case. And I named him Elton. And I named him Elton Floyd, which is actually his full name. And my editor's like, where on earth did you come up? She says, that's just the perfect name for an old biographer. I said, well, Floyd is the name of my possum that comes on the back porch every night. And I couldn't think of any other name. So I named the last name Floyd. And then the first name was from a stuffed animal, Kim. I had this stuffed animal that looked like a mix between a troll and a dog. They called them Woofits in the 1980s. They were Woofits. I don't know if you remember those. And he's got a little like newsboy's cap on, and he's the leader of all my stuffed animals. When I was little, he's the head, and I named him Elton. And so when I did this biographer, I'm like, Elton Floyd is his name. My editor's like, really? So we have a stuffed animal and an opossum, and that equals Elton Floyd, the biographer. Welcome to a writer's world. So we have Sir Theophilus, which is a stuffed penguin. Okay.
Well, I knew that we were kindred spirits, Jamie.
Yeah.
I mean, all these years, my dear friend, I love you. And people have said that we look like sisters, and that's always fun when we're at events. Oh, are you guys sisters?
I know.
But now the whole naming a character after a stuffed animal, I haven't
kind of seals it.
I hadn't heard anybody else do that.
I hadn't either. So when you said, I'm like, oh, now I can tell my Elton story.
I wish my penguin was over here. He's right over there because my grandson loves to play with him. I should hold him up. Sir Theophilus.
You need to take some pictures of Sir Theophilus and post them on your social media.
I should.
Because that would be a fun little thing for readers to see.
That and the creepy basement. We got to bring the creepy basement back now. That
you do need to bring the creepy basement. Yes. This is the book. Okay. So we have Carter, we have Ellie, we have Sir Theophilus, we have the judge and Marvella. What more do we need? I mean, that's enough. You sold me on the book.
Yay! Hopefully the readers are sold too.
I think so. I think the readers are sold. I don't think it's going to be a hard sell from here on out. Okay, so this is book 2. We have one more coming out for the Jewels of Kalispell. When does that one come, and what do we have a title for that?
Next May. We haven't heard back yet from the team if we have a final title, so I won't say anything yet, just book 3.
Okay.
But it is the Macintosh Opera House, and I have to tell everybody to get excited, because this is actually why we did the series the way we did it, because when we were talking about what series we're going to do next, first we started in our area because we both lived in the Bitterroot Valley, and we were there, and we thought there's so much cool history, and it just wasn't working for what we needed at the time. And so we might go back there someday though.
Do it.
So we're like Kalispell. And then as I was doing some research online, I found this really cool article about the
Mhm.
Macintosh Opera House, but nobody had been in it. It hasn't been used, for all these years. It's still in existence. And, it's this very cool piece of history, but it would take millions of dollars, to renovate
Yep.
it and get it back up.
Yep.
It's a very cool historic site. It's had lots of water damage. It had a fire, bunch of stuff.
It's haunted. It's a place for a
Yeah.
Jaime Jo Wright book. It sounds
Yes.
great. I love it.
I'll send you the video of the inside.
Ooh, I want to see it. I do. I want to see it.
It's a very cool place. So I told Tracy, I was like, wouldn't this be cool? And that's what kind of sparked, let's use a historic, building, for
Yes.
each place. And so, we had gone back and forth, and she had talked about the train depot and, the Carnegie Library is there. So we did that one. But the Opera House is book 3. And it's a lot of fun because we also found an article. There's all kinds of places that cite this, that they had Uncle Tom's Cabin, a traveling theater group that came in
Okay.
and performed it over a weekend.
Mhm.
And they had the largest audience they'd ever had. And it was more than 1,000 people
Wow.
crammed into the Opera House, which is the second story of this building. And going up there, it's hard to imagine 1,000 people. So some of the outlandish articles said, people were hanging from chandeliers and standing in the windowsills. And I think people sat in the windowsills. I don't think they stood.
They probably
But-
didn't have fire codes back then either.
Yeah.
So
But they were crammed, in there
yeah.
for this performance.
Yeah.
And so we're looking all of this up and trying to figure it all out. And it just looks like so much fun. So that's how we really started with the series. We wanted to start with that, but we're ending the series
We're
with
ending with that.
the Opera
Okay.
House. Super
Ooh.
cool. Super cool.
I love that. And you say Opera House, and my brain suddenly goes to, I wonder what the cover is going to look like.
I can't wait.
I know. I love it. I love it. Well, you should be getting your cover soon, because I just got my cover for my book in April. So if you're coming out in May, that means you guys are next on the docket to get your cover.
Super excited about that.
Cool. All right. So the first book in the series, if readers are listening, is called The Heart's Choice.
Yes.
So you can start with that, but from the sounds of it, the only carryovers are Judge and Marvella and Sir Theophilus. So hypothetically, if you ran across with each tomorrow, I could pick that up and just read that without missing anything.
Yes.
It stands alone.
Perfect. I love that. All right. Well, Tracie and Kim, I think we were behaved.
Maybe.
At least a little.
A little. I think
Tracie kept us in line because
she did.
Tracie's the best.
I'm the mother of the group. Yes.
The big sister. The big sister.
Okay. The big sister of the group. Okay.
There you go.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Well, this is always such a blessing to get to speak with both of you. And I'm sure we will be doing it again in the future.
Yay.
Because you guys are some of my most listened to podcasts. I just want to say.
Wonderful.
Well, that's exciting.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you very much.
Fun.
Yes. So anybody listening, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say it. I've never said it before. Please like and subscribe to this video and YouTube channel if you enjoy this video, so that you can see more in the future. Oh, man. Anyway, thank you both for being on, and we will be sure to rush out and get with each tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Jamie. It was a pleasure.